Ambassador of the United States of America, Mr. Brent Hart, Chairman of the Women and Gender Equality Commission, Mrs. Ingrid Chandra, Deputy Chief of the Party, Governance Enhancement Project, Mr. Kevin McLaughlin, former Chief Information Officer, Ms. Sylvia Conway, senior government officials, members of the diplomatic corps, wife of the U.S. Ambassador, Mrs. Hart, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Women and Gender Equality Commission, I would like to say a hearty welcome to all of you, who I'm sure made a very special effort to attend this forum in recognition of the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. We appreciate the fact that Mr. Ambassador Hart is here with us on this occasion when we're discussing the issue that you consider to be extremely important in promoting and enhancing women's status in Guyana and worldwide. One of the concepts and tenets on which the women's movement has been structured and expressed is stated in a quote from Michelle Bachelet, who is the head of the UN Women. She said, "Women's strength, women's industry, women's wisdom are humankind's greatest untapped resource. The challenge is to show how this resource can be effectively tapped in ways that benefit us all." The Women and Gender Equality Commission has as its mandate to promote national recognition and acceptance that women's rights are human rights, respect for gender equality, and the protection, development, and attainment of gender equality. In support of this mandate, the Women and Gender Equality Commission has collaborated with the United States Agency for International Development, funded Government Enhancement Project to put together a forum recognizing the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, commemorated on November 25th, all across the world. The purpose of this event is, first of all, to examine in depth situations experienced by women which do prevent their achievement in relation to equality and their ability to contribute to all aspects of national development. At the end of the presentations, participants will produce a working document on their views on issues discussed and recommendations for relevant and effective actions. We hope that this forum serves as an opportunity to target women and men in decision-making positions at national, regional, and international levels that will culminate in a working document which responds to our mandate to promote national, regional, international acceptance that women's rights are human rights and the protection, development, and attainment of gender equality. At this point, I would like to introduce to you a young man who has been so supportive to the Women and Gender Equality Commission. He has been such a supporter, he has ensured that we are able to really promote gender equality in Guyana. He is none other than Mr. Kevin McLaughlin. Mr. McLaughlin is the Deputy Chief of Party for the United States Agency for Development, funded Governance Enhancement Project, implemented by Tech to Tech ARD, and has been working in Guyana for 2 years in close partnership with the Women and Gender Equality Commission. Mr. McLaughlin has 17 years of international development experience, including worked as Chief of Party, Deputy Chief of Party, Project Officer, Community Organizer, and Project Manager. He has worked with the United States Agency for International Development, non-governmental organizations, international organizations, and volunteer organizations in numerous countries, which include Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, Asia, and Eastern Europe. Kevin is a former Peace Corps volunteer who served in Albania and has a master's degree in sustainable development from the School for International Training, Brackleboro, Vermont. As a former Associate Peace Corps Director, I have seen Kevin emulate the many values that characterize Peace Corps volunteers, that of hard work, commitment, and resilience. The Women Gender Equality Commission is better from having worked with him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Kevin McLaughlin.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for agreeing to be here this morning. I work with party so we appreciate that. On behalf of the USAID Governance Enhancement Project, we're pleased to be partnering with the Women and Gender Equality Commission today's meeting. As we recognize and raise awareness of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, observed next Friday, November 25th. Over the past year and a half, the Governance Enhancement Project has worked in partnership with the Women and Gender Equality Commission on a number of successful initiatives, including the public launch of the Commission earlier this year on March 8th, on the 100th anniversary of International Women's Day. We've also been involved in numerous capacity building trainings for members of the Commission to build their skills in conducting effective meetings and community dialogues, in negotiating for effective representation, in using data development for issue identification and decision-making, and also to develop communication strategies so as to promote the work of the Commission to get their messages out to the public. And I'm very pleased to see that the Commission and the Commissioners have put those tools and skills to work in the use in their day-to-day activities and also in today's forum. As our project winds down early next year, I'd like to take a moment to publicly thank the Commission. Specifically, Mrs. Andrea Chantal, Chairperson, Mrs. Diana Lawrence, Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Marina Ragavir, Administrative Assistant, and tireless worker in the Commission, and all the Commissioners for the time and energy that they put into the Commission to become the vibrant constitutional body that it is today. In short, for the diplomatic corps and for the donor community among us, with any available funds, we have a solid partner in the Women and Gender Equality Commission. On a more serious note, the issue of violence against women is unfortunately not a new one. However, we believe that through thought-provoking questions and presentations and constructive dialogue, we can address the root causes of this issue and effect positive change moving forward. Each of you has been invited here today because you have critical roles in influencing change in society for your respective positions and organizations. We aim for not just the normal traditional forums here where, generally speaking, most of the time you have mostly female representation. And we aim for 50% males or not, and it's great to see that we've nearly achieved that, and it's a step in the right direction to bring male perspective to the table. We look forward to hearing your thoughts, your perspectives, and your recommendations as we move forward to eliminate violence against women. Thank you.
Mr. Kevin McLaughlin. We are going to be calling the podium shortly the United States Ambassador, Ambassador Lee Brent Hart, who arrived in Vienna on Thursday, September 8, 2011, after having been confirmed by the Senate in June. He was sworn in as ambassador to the Republic of Vienna on August 19, 2011. Ambassador Hart is a career senior foreign service officer with extensive service in the Western Hemisphere and Europe. Prior to his nomination, he served as Strategy Affairs at the U.S. Embassy in Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean from January 2009 to June 2011. He also served as Deputy Chief of Mission and Strategy Affairs at the U.S. Embassy in Nassau, Bahamas from 2005 to 2008, and at the U.S. Embassy to the Holy See in Rome from 2002 to 2005. Ambassador Hart joined the United States Foreign Service in 1988 and served as consular officer in Bridgetown, Barbados from 1988 to 1989. He served as a political officer at the U.S. Embassy in Berlin from 1990 to 1992, and as a political military officer at the U.S. Embassy in Hague from 1993 to 1996, where he also served as an exchange diplomat in the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. From 1993 to 2000, he returned to the U.S. Embassy in the Eastern Caribbean as a political economic section chief and acting deputy chief of mission. During this time, he helped develop the 1997 Caribbean U.S. Summit agenda and subsequently worked to implement summit commitments with countries in the Eastern Caribbean. From 2000 to 2002, he served as a team leader for the NATO policy in the Office of European Political and Security Affairs in the Department of State, where he was responsible for the NATO enlargement, European security and defense policy issues. Ambassador Hart has received various Department of State awards, including the Director General's Award for reporting, 5 Superior Honor Awards, and 2 Meritorious Honor Awards. He earned a bachelor's degree in history from Yale University and a master's and doctorate degree from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. He has published numerous articles on U.S. foreign policy and speaks fluent Italian, Dutch, German, and French. The ambassador is married, and he and his wife Sasha have 3 sons. Please welcome the U.S. Ambassador to Cuba.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I know that I didn't get the introduction as a young man, so I guess I passed beyond that, despite my unusual age. But anyway, protocol having been established, I'm very pleased to join you here today at this timely forum to recognize and to raise awareness of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. This will be observed worldwide on November 25th. This year, 2011, also marks the 100th anniversary of International Women's Day, and the theme for this year is equal access to education, training, science, technology, pathway to decent work for women. The United States government, through the U.S. Agency for International Development, is very pleased to be able to join forces with the Women and Gender Equality Commission in support of this dialogue today. This is the Commission's 3rd activity that we've done in partnership with USAID, the others being International Women's Day 2011 and the training program for members of the fairly newly established Commission. Violence against women and girls touches Guyana directly, just as it does every country in the world. Gender-based violence is a global pandemic that cuts across all borders, all races, ethnic groups, socioeconomic groups, and religions. Throughout the world, it takes many forms. It can threaten women and girls at any point in their lives. From female feticide to inadequate access to education and nutrition, to child marriage, incest, and so-called honor killings. It can take the form of dowry-related murder or domestic violence, rape, including spousal rape, sexual exploitation and abuse, trafficking of persons, or the neglect and ostracism of widows. Appallingly, 1 in 3 women around the world will experience some form of gender-based violence at some point in their lives. In some countries, that number is as high as 70%. In Guyana, based on cases that we all see reported in the media and the prevalence of risk factors associated with violence, it's evident that the incidence of violence against women is far too high. That is why this year's 16 Days of Activism Against Gender Violence, which begins November 25th with the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and which ends December 10th with International Human Rights Day, offers an opportunity for us to take action to help free women and girls from violence. Whether violence occurs behind closed doors, or as a public tactic of intimidation, whether down the street of our neighborhood or on distant shores, violence against women and girls damages us all, men and women alike. These 16 days are a sobering reminder that gender-based violence cannot be treated as solely a women's issue. It is a profound challenge for all people. Gender-based violence is not just an affront to human rights and dignity, it also adversely affects the welfare of communities. When women and girls are abused, businesses close, incomes shrink, families go hungry, and children grow up internalizing behavior that then perpetuates the cycle of violence. We know that children who witness domestic violence are at significantly greater risk of dropping out of school, of falling into crime and substance abuse, and having other developmental challenges. In short, violence against women rips at the social fabric that holds us together as a society. Physical violence vastly increases women's risk for a range of serious health conditions, including reproductive health problems, miscarriages, and sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV and AIDS. There are also strong linkages to maternal mortality, as well as poor child health and mortality and morbidity. Beyond the individual pain and suffering, gender-based violence has a range of economic effects at the national level, such as foregone economic productivity and reduced confidence in the country's institutions. Consider, if you will, the cost incurred for medical and legal services as a result of injury and abuse. Calculate the cost of lost household productivity and reduced income stemming from the forfeit of paid working days. Some costs are also passed on to the rest of the community as judicial, health, and security services are strained. In effect, domestic violence acts as a cancer on societies, causing enormous upheaval in the progress of social and economic development. No country, as I said, or part of the world is immune to these costs. A 1995 study in Canada estimated the annual direct price of violence against women more than $1 billion a year, $1 billion a year in judicial fees and counseling costs. A 2004 UK study projected total direct and indirect costs of domestic violence £23 billion, or 440 pounds per person, heavy tax indeed. In the United States, the cost of violence against women exceeds $5.8 billion per year, $4.1 billion spent on direct medical and health care services, and productivity losses accounting for $1.8 billion. In a time of strained budgets, some may paint efforts at interventions as too expensive. And while investing in prevention and prosecution of acts of violence and aggression may have some costs up front, it will pay enormous dividends over the long run. For example, the U.S. we passed a Violence Against Women Act, which strengthened our efforts to investigate and prosecute these crimes, has been estimated to have saved more than $16 billion since its enactment in 1994. In Guyana, there have been visible efforts by both the government and civil society organizations to address this problem. These include the enactment of legislation such as the Domestic Violence Act and the Sexual Offenses Act, the establishment of the Men's Affairs Bureau and the Domestic Violence Policy Unit, the provision of support services for victims of violence, and ongoing public awareness efforts. These are all outstanding outstanding steps forward. Through a USAID grant, one civil society organization supported the establishment of a men's forum in Region 6. The forum seeks to increase awareness among men of attitudinal and behavioral issues and to encourage and equip them with the knowledge and skills they need to become agents of change in their communities. It is vital to support the inclusion of men and boys in addressing domestic violence and changing gender norms and attitudes. The engagement of all faith groups, as demonstrated by the presence here today of representatives from many of the faith groups here, is also critical to any effort to reduce gender-based violence. Your ability as role models and faith leaders is going to be essential to the success of this effort. So it's our hope today that your deliberations will help find creative ways to reach the whole of society in addressing what is a key human rights issue. We must find ways to educate young boys and men to model different behavior, to educate women and girls not to accept violence, and to encourage non-violent behaviors. We also want to help address entrenched societal beliefs and attitudes that foster these kinds of ideas. Innovative approaches are needed to effect the societal change that we all seek that will reduce domestic violence. One such initiative I'd like to just mention is called the Witness Project, which will be launched in January 2012. Margaret Clemens, an American who came to Guyana a few years ago and was struck by the incidents of domestic violence, came up with the idea of the Witness Project to dramatically expand awareness of the scope and the impact of domestic violence and to spark conversations on the effects of and alternatives to violent behavior. Margaret will be coming down here and plastering posters around Georgetown and maybe the broader country with eyes and with faces of children, all photographs taken by 15 talented young Guyanese children to make the point that when violence occurs, children are watching, observing, and learning behaviors. I've offered the U.S. Embassy as one site. I know they're looking at the National Library, the Stockbrook Market, and the Seawall, and many other sites around town. And I've also offered to help deploy some of these posters and images around town. And I do hope many of you will join me and join Margaret Clemens and her foundation this coming January. It will be a good conversation starter. The International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and the 16 days ahead offer an opportunity to renew our commitment to free women and girls and men from the nightmare of violence, whether the abuse occurs in the home or behind closed doors or in the fields of armed conflict. Countries cannot progress when half of their population is marginalized and mistreated and subject to discrimination, and when the other half are suspected perpetrators or have been raised to believe that abuse is acceptable. When women and girls are accorded their rights and afforded equal opportunities in education, healthcare, employment, and political participation, and when men recognize these opportunities, they can lift up their families, their communities, and their nations and act as agents of change. Our Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, is a firm believer in an advocate for rights for women, as many know. And she recently observed, and I quote, "Investing in the potential of the world's women and girls is one of the surest ways to achieve global economic progress, political stability, and greater prosperity for women and men the world over." So in closing, I applaud the Commission for today's initiative, and I sincerely hope that our collective efforts will take us one step further to eliminating violence against women. I wish you great success in your deliberations today and in the days to come. Thank you very much.
And we certainly would like to partner with any organization that would ensure that we eliminate violence against women. The person I'm about to come to the podium is no stranger to us here, and she's none other than Mrs. Indra Chandapal, who is the chairperson of the Women and Gender Equality Commission. Mrs. Chandapal was sworn in as Commissioner by His Excellency, President Bharatiya, on 27th August 2009, and on the 21st of elected as chairperson of the Women and Gender Equality Commission. Mrs. Chandrapal is presently the General Secretary of the Women's Progressive Organization, a position she held since 1983. She has also recently served as a government chief whip. Her passion for gender equity and equality is evident in the various portfolios she held. She was a member of the Commission on Women and Gender Issues in 2009, Prime Executive of the Coordinating Council on Women and Gender Equity from 2001 to 2006, Vice President and President of SIM OAS Women's Section from 1998 to 2002, and she holds the record of being the first national representative at Capital from 1985 to 1988. Mrs. Chandrapal held several prominent posts. She served as a minister within the Ministry of Labour, Human Services, Social Security and Housing from 1992 to 1997, and as Minister of Human Services and Social Security from 1997 to 2001. She presently serves as a member of the University of Vienna Council, a member of Public Accounts, and as chairman of the Social Sector Committee in Parliament. Mrs. Chandrapal did her studies in political science overseas. She is married to Navin Chandrapal and is the mother of 2 beautiful children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Navin Chandrapal, chairperson of the Women's.
Good morning, everyone. Members of the Women and Gender Equality Commission, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The Women and Gender Equality Commission welcomes the opportunity to collaborate with you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in this discussion forum to recognize the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. We wish to specially recognize the distinguished ambassador of the United States of America, Dr. Brent Hart, and his lovely wife, Sasha. Thank you, sir, for your very profound presentation. It was so enlightening in terms of domestic violence. We can see and we can count on you as an ally in this fight in Guyana. So we want to thank you in advance. We also wish to acknowledge the representative of USAID, Mr. Kevin McLaughlin, who has worked closely with the Commission in 2 other initiatives, and we wish to publicly thank him for his support. The function of the Women and Gender Equality Commission is enshrined in the Constitution of Guyana with 40 identified functions that the Commission is responsible to undertake. You can see the functions on the wall. Keeping that in mind, we have prepared our annual work program to incorporate these functions. The Commission, as its name signifies, intends to work in a way that engages both men and women in the search for ways to realize the goal of gender equality. This is the first event organized by the Commission that seeks to bring both the male and female perspective at one forum. We have chosen the topics for discussion to coincide with November 25th, observance of International Day Against Violence Against Women, which was declared in honor of the heroic Mirabel sisters who were murdered by the Trujillo regime in 1960 in the Dominican Republic. The issue of violence against women is not country-specific, as was already alluded to. It is universal, and this was clearly expressed by men and women of the world in 1995 at the 4th World Conference of Women held in China. Those 2 weeks of meeting concluded with the Platform for Action and the Beijing Declaration, which on page 73 states, and I quote, "Violence against women is a manifestation of the historically on equal power relations between men and women, which have led to domination over and discrimination against women by men, and to the prevention of women's full advancement. Violence against women throughout the life cycle derives essentially from cultural patterns, in particular, the harmful effects of certain traditional or customary practices and all acts of extremism linked to race, sex, language, or religion that perpetrate the lowest status accorded to women in the family, the workplace, the community, and society. Ambassador, in this presentation, referred to some of the instances of genital mutilation, dowry-related incidents, and also the situation we have in Asian countries where the girl child is aborted even before she is born. Violence against women is exacerbated as well by social pressures. The government of Guyana has responded to the problem of violence by ensuring that the requisite laws for domestic and sexual violence legislations were enacted, giving support to help and shelter for not only providing a safe place but also to ensure financial assistance, expanding legal aid throughout the country, collaborating with stakeholders to garner support in dealing with this challenging social problem, setting up of the domestic violence unit as well as the Men's Affairs Bureau. A commissioner at one of her statutory meetings brought to her attention the comments made by a priest at his pulpit who said that, and I quote, "Women are at fault and are responsible for male aggressiveness," end of quote. A number of other women have brought to her attention similar remarks that seek to explain the deterioration of the family environment to women going out into the workplace, especially when it's a single-headed household. These are just a few instances, but we too often hear similar views being peddled, which helps to perpetuate violence against women. We believe that some of the negative stereotypes must be discussed publicly to clarify, debunk, and inform objectively the real reasons. Women and men can be mobilized to overcome violence in all its forms, and this along with the various measures in place, such as the policies, the legislations, the programs, and the commitment of the various agencies can both help to reduce the cause and the consequences of domestic violence. In this regard, I see a strong collaboration with individual men who are strong advocates against violence against women, as well as the men's group in society. They are our allies for change, and every effort will be made by the Commission to get them engaged in a variety of ways. We're hoping that you, the participants, will be as objective and dispassionate as you can possibly be, and we hope as well that each working group will be able to identify at least 10 recommendations on actions which can be taken. We wish to convey to all of you our sincerest appreciation for you being here this morning and look forward to a very fruitful discussion. I thank you.
Very much, Madam Chairperson for the Women and Equality Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, following the program, the next presentation should be Andrew Hicks, Head of Departmental Sociology, University of Vienna. Unfortunately, he's not here yet. We have not been able to make contact with him. I spoke with him earlier this morning. He promised that he'd be here before by 8:45. We're still trying to make contact with him. In the meantime, we will have the second presenter, and she is none other than Ms. Sylvia Conway. She's former Chief Probation Officer of the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Ms. Conway worked as a counselor also for Help and Shelter. She worked in the drop-in center for street children, the Guyana Prison Service, and a crisis counselor with the Republic Bank. She taught at UG University of Vienna, the IDEVAW. She also is a trained grade 1 teacher. She taught at the Crichton Lake College, the Georgetown American School, and the Government Technical Institute. She has attended schools in Trinidad, Guyana, and Barbados. She said the most important position ever held is that of being a mother of 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Sylvia Conway.
I am so pleased to see so many people I know unfortunately, I look forward to seeing more men because we are the issue that concerns men. Men's treatment of women. And if we are going to mobilize anybody, I think in the first place, we should try to mobilize with men. I know we have several men's groups, but perhaps if they have been here this morning, we will begin this make a more forceful impression. My topic this morning is women responsible for their aggressiveness. I would like to cut this chapter short to make it possible for me to be here this morning. What happened? When I saw this topic, I said to myself, well, it would appear that there is a problem. And in fact, many of us know that when a man loses his temper, usually the woman has to be blamed. I was at a home one day when this man was saying to his wife, "You will have to get divorced. I will have to separate from you." And she said, "Well, you can't leave me." And he looks at her and says, "Well," she said, "because you have to have somebody to blame. So I go who you will." So, we all of us here know that that has a lot. I want to look very quickly at, well, I said, thank you. I spoke to a priest, and what was important, he said to me that men live under a lot of stress. And women should understand that when a man comes home, she needs to understand his mood. So I said to him, but women are now employed and they come home to under a lot of stress. He says that this society has to understand that women handle stress better than men. So if the woman comes home, the woman must know the kind of mood he's in and accommodate her. This is why I'm saying I wish we had some more women. Because men have to understand that women are not just breadwinners. They are mothers, they are nurses, they are counselors. So when a man goes on and he has one job to do, a woman has several. She comes home and will think more stressed than many men. With the fact that men seem to think that women's work is not really important, even if she's at home, we know that. You get up in the morning and you work for the whole day, and a man comes home and eats his food and he goes to sleep. Not me. Thank you for going to the market, shopping, meeting the children. Because of course when they come home, they expect the children to be quiet. They can't be, oh dear, you disturb me. With that kind of attitude. So a lot of aggressiveness that women are exposed to by men happens in a very quiet way. And nobody wants to go out to the road and say, you know, my husband was abusive to me. You stay very quietly, he shouts at you, and you want to play up to his mood now, you want to pacify him, so you just let it go. But is that correct? Aren't women expected to have feelings and to be treated with a little consideration, a little kindness, a little patience? You know, the man who comes home and he's not feeling well, and she has to be his nurse. But she comes home and what? Well, take a tablet, no. Right. So we go back to the priest who says to me that women should, because of the social training, their mothers should teach them very early that they are subservient to men. Okay? And woman's place, he says, is to understand her husband and to try to keep the peace in the home. What? I like the what. That was my kind of reaction. So, there was no, he didn't think that boys at an early age needed to understand that you treat people with care, that you need to be more patient, because these are women's characters, and therefore, if a boy behaves like this, therefore he is effeminate. So the boy who comes home and throws his shirt on the corner, expects it to be picked up, should not be told that you should pick it up because you live in a house, and therefore you put extra work on somebody. You have a quarrel, and then the woman gets to be, why don't you control the children? Because, you know, we know that a lot of fathers, while they are there, they take no active part in children's disuse. They want to live well with their children. So the woman becomes the brunt for all the abuse. Any aggressive behavior doesn't go to the children, who very likely deserve it. It goes to husband. What I found was very interesting is after I spoke to him, and I asked him, I said, don't you know anything at all in our church about constant families? What about premarital counseling? Don't you say to them, rules are changing now? Don't you prepare these men in the process of ancestry socialization to say, when you become a husband, your role becomes different, your behavior becomes different, expectations different. But he says, you know, if people request it, then they do it. I would think that the church should have a compulsory counseling session for people who are about to be married or people who are just engaged, because you are preparing your men and women for another role where expectations are different, where your role is different and your behavior is expected to be adjusted to meet your immediate situation. But then I spoke to a lawyer, and I like the lawyer. He gave me a long dissertation about women's rights. And he agreed. He said, you know, he didn't think any woman should be responsible for the behavior of another. Any human being should be responsible for that. And again, he went back to the family. He's a family, he does a lot of domestic violence cases, and he does a lot of divorces. And he says he has found that a lot of times what happens, you know, cultural behavior. Families sometimes support a couple and they stay together. Family pressures. The mother says, if you divorce her, this will happen. Especially the mother, very forceful. I remember when I went to work in police, the senior officer said to me, if a man, and he wasn't Eurasian, he was saying if a black man comes to you and he says, I want to divorce, don't bother with him. Right? If he brings his mother, because a lot of parents, women are single mothers, and they expect their children to maintain them after they've been married. So immediately that someone wants to get married, there's not only a financial loss, but there's emotional loss. She will take away my son's love from me. So rather than encouraging people to, a young couple to stay together, who have children involved now, sometimes family pressures cause people to separate. And then you have to go back to the domestic violence issues. We have, what? What the lawyer did point out was that when you have issues of domestic violence, men hardly ever take responsibility. They rationalize by saying that whatever happens within the home should stay within the home. Women gossip, and therefore they embarrass them at their workplace, and therefore the beating they get when they go home, a lot of them feel it's justified. The men feel it's justified. Women, he says, very early should understand that men who are violent are not likely to stop being violent. and therefore they should remove themselves from violent situations. If you proceed very early in a relationship, you might not be married. And when we look at the newspaper and we see young girls like, I'm 14 years old, I'm in love with this boy, but he's not me once. What should I do? What should you do? Exactly. We look at parenting, and the lawyer was saying that a lot of mothers don't, their little children take things from them, and they don't say it is wrong. Because if you give something, you expect something. The area of exchange. Right? So therefore, women, mothers, should very early say to their children, try to be independent. Try to look after your needs and to be satisfied. Because then you will not expose yourself to man's violence because he continues to his property. And we go back again to the issue of man's property. Many men kill women because women refuse to continue the relationship, the abusive relationship. In yesterday's papers, there was a report that there were 42 murders, domestic violence. And in many of these cases, I think even when you look at the newspaper reports, women have tried to exit from a relationship that was abusive. Are women then responsible for the aggressiveness that men visit? Or do we just, as women, sit back and say, well, I will try a bit harder. There's always a hope, in a marriage that he will stop. He must get older, he will stop. But what happens at the end? I spoke to a headmaster, a former principal, and he said to me in his school, a lot of the girls there, he thinks that if the teachers were more involved, in saying to the children very early to be careful in how you select a partner, because many homes don't get the education. We come from a system where mothers don't discuss these things, and mothers need to be more involved in educating their children and choosing a partner. You go to get engaged, social expectations. When I get engaged and I have a ring, everything is alright. It doesn't work like that. And one has to be realistic. Once there is an element of aggression, one has to say, this is not for me. Either we go to counseling or we learn to talk it through. But remember, in homes, many homes don't talk it through. There's always a physical part. We look at issues of conflict resolution. We look at anger management. How many parents either sit and say to their children, there is another way here? So we go back again to the family to ask what has happened within the family system to cause men in this age now to be so cruel to women. And they have been some very grisly murders, chopping off hand, chopping off head. It's not just, well, and you hit somebody, he falls down, he dies. This is brutal. Our women really deserving of that kind of treatment. The headmaster said to me that in a patriarchal family system, women have to learn culturally that the men have certain expectations of gender entitlement. Because I am a man, women are supposed to do certain things for me. I see Mr. Hicks already. So, Diana, like the rest of the Caribbean, from an early age, boys are afforded special privileges. When they grow up with feelings of gender entitlement, immediately they think that they are better than girls. When girls excel, there's always a feeling that, oh, perhaps the teacher liked her more. They can't, I think, Andrew's going to touch on women's empowerment, so I leave that to him. But generally, a lot of anger happens in a classroom, even in the classroom, when girls excel. And right now, if you look, the University of UG had their graduation on Saturday, and the women exceeded the men in numbers. We are going to find women going into senior positions with men resenting them. Anger is transferred. You transfer your anger from your work situation to your home because you can't tell your female boss what you really would like to do. So that again the woman becomes the brunt of transfer anger. We go back a bit. I was telling you about the importance of family and family training. If we look at the child in the home, the first person with whom the child comes into contact is mother or the caregiver, usually a female. Freud, Coley, me, Erickson, all of these psychologists have said in different ways that the emotional bonding of the child with the mother impacts on his personality development. If a child is treated with kindness and gentleness, the child assumes that the world is a kind and gentle place. The child behaves differently to people. If the child is treated with anger and aggression, and there are cases where, especially with unwanted pregnancies, or a woman has been deserted during pregnancy, the child, especially if he's honest with the father, is immediately the brunt of all types of negative behavior. Does the child grow up, especially if it's a boy? Does he grow up liking women? Or does he transfer that anger to another woman at some point? I was talking to a medical doctor once, and he had 4 divorces. Well, as a probation officer, I was involved in custody matter. And he said to me, his mother had 4 children, he was the only boy. And he learned his father deserted the family very early. And he looked so much like his father that the mother would beat him like him. You know? Because his mother had taken his father to court to increase the maintenance by a penny. And the father said, I'd prefer to drown her than to give you that penny. So in his mind, the anger he had towards his father, for not minding him, the anger towards his mother, for her treatment of him, all rolled into one. He was totally dysfunctional. Intellectually, he was bright. But as a person, he treated women terribly. And he says, you know, well, I just don't want to. And I counseled him for about 6 months. He got married again and he left the country, so I don't know what is happening to him now. But behavior doesn't change overnight. Anger management is very important when children are growing up. Conflict resolution skills are things to be taught into the family. And if these are not entrenched very early, there's going to be a lot. I mean, later on, you meet with people, you expect them to behave in a certain way. And it's always difficult when it comes back into the family. Because the children then don't learn anything that benefits them in a positive way. How do you let along with people? Why is it important that very early I understand that I can't hit, that I must talk, I must look for alternatives? What else can I do? We have the family as a primary agent of socializing. In the family, the child learns culture, he learns beliefs, he learns values, he learns morality. If the child is not taught right from wrong very early, and the right from wrong includes feelings for other people. The family doesn't live in isolation. Initially, the child might be in the family, but the child goes to school. So his social world widens. How does he relate when he goes to school and the teacher says to him, sit? And at home, he knows if he doesn't sit, he will get a lash. But if he doesn't lash, there's no form of punishment at school now. So there are no parameters. He does what he wants. What happens then? If the home had taught him to obey instructions, to show respect for adult authority, to show respect to other people's feelings, would he have behaved differently? You look at the family as a core element in personality development. The child learns at home what he's going to practice outside. The child very early understands where the power lies. If the child is treated with kindness and the child wants to please the mother, the child behaves innocently. The child pleases who he thinks will give him something good. Children want comfort. If you look at children in homes and orphanages, for example, as soon as you go to the home, the children run towards you. They all want attention. The child in the home. The child who grows up in the family, if you try to take a baby from a mother, the child goes back. Because the child has bonded with one person. And that bonding is important because that one person can give that child a sense of proper direction. If you look at the child, look at the crucible of identity. Children learn very early with whom they identify and they exhibit a type of behavior that is reflective of the person they admire. There was this doctor who said to me, he used to be a, you know what? So I said to him one day, without remembering, what are you only? And he says, no, he's dog. I said, why? He said he went home one night and his 8-year-old son picked up a glass and started to stab around. So he said to him, why are you doing that? And he said, Daddy, I want to be like you. I want to drink. And just like Daddy. And he said at that point, it was like a shock that he was imprinting on his child a type of behavior that was totally illegal. Because out of the drinking came the abuse. If the wife said to him, look at it, what we do to the children here, they come home, the woman help with the homework, I am not supposed to help with the homework, I'm a busy man. I'm a doctor, I have a lot of things to do. And she was working, she was teaching. So she was expected to come home and do everything. Because when he came home, he was a stressed out man. Was she really responsible for his behavior? We go back to peer group influences. I want to look again at the same doctor who went up with a group of other men who drank. Was he drinking to prove his manhood? Was he drinking to be incompetent with people he considered to be his class? Was there any thought at all into his family? When we do counseling, we look at men who think that to behave a certain way is to be emasculated. If my wife calls and she says, come home, and I go right away, therefore, she's ruling me. And this is about being in control. Men want to be in control. I was in a room once where a man came in. He was a senior teacher, and he said, there's something called gender equality was being discussed. And he said, in my house, I am the boss. Everybody knows I'm the boss. My wife and my children don't have the boss. Their only duty is to tell me what to do. Well, I laughed because they defend what he was saying. When I go, I know how to get on with my wife and family. So if you want to stay here and argue about who is the boss, when I go home, whatever my wife tells me to do, I will do it. Because I want my family to live in peace. How many people, or is it always a challenge if a woman says, go look at the yard needs cleaning, is an abuse, is a curse, is a hit. Because how dare you tell me what you want with that? Gender equality. Is there any gender equality? And ask ourselves, how does the family prepare children for future roles? Because if children are not taught from an early age that as they go through life, they need to change their behavior. People get married, roles change, expectations change, duties change. The man who says to his wife after 40 years of marriage, you know, you're just like my grandmother, you're trying to run my life. The grandmother has been there for 50 years. And all he could see was a grandmother, not that she cared for him. And she cared for him when his mother died. So she's been the only mother. But he sees her as someone who was trying to run his life. Many men, I'm not one man. I wouldn't bundle our men together. Because I have met some very considerate men. But generally, this issue of power and control has been a problem. We have the murder rate seems to be very, very, very high when it comes to domestic violence cases. When I got this topic, I went to the daughter prison. I'm a member of the protocol board, so I have access to the prison easily. And I interviewed 6 prisoners, all of whom had committed offenses against women, serious women. One man, one person, had murdered his wife. And this is a bad story. He lived overseas, he was an engineer, and he comes to Denver very frequently. His sister-in-law, the brother's wife, called his wife and said, you know, when he said he has another woman, he has another home. So the wife comes into the country, the husband doesn't know. And then the sister-in-law calls him, and he comes to the house and sees his wife. There's a big row. He has a nice fire. He shoots at the sister-in-law, and she drops. And then the wife comes in the way, and he shoots her. She dies. So before the court, he's convicted. Murder and attempted murder. And you know what he said to me? He said that the sister-in-law hadn't called the wife, it would not have happened. There is no responsibility for his marital infidelity. No remorse for the fact that he has left, well, he's in prison, the wife is there, the children are in the States. But he has left 5 children, basically orphans. 3 went into jail, and 2 adults. I asked him, I said, tell me something. If you had thought about consequences, would you have behaved differently? And he said to me, he was so angry that his sister-in-law would dare to get into his life, that he didn't see any other way to handle it. It's horrible. I felt sorry for the children. I consoled the children who are going to grow up without a mother and a father. You know, this stigma sometimes, unfortunately and unfairly, attacks with the children. You have a child whose father is in prison, and somebody says to your child, your grandfather is a murderer. And we look at people thinking quickly, what alternatives are available here to me? I wanted, talking about rape, a 45-year-old man raped a 14-year-old girl. You shook your head. He had denied it, even when he came before the World War, he denied it. But the issue here was that he had no sense of guilt. It's as though she pushed us. This is a 14-year-old child. She took money from me, so therefore she deserved whatever she got. So I asked him about the conditions of the home. He said that the girl's family is very, very poor, and he would give them things. So I suppose I was his parent. And he could violated a 14-year-old child. And one wonders really if the emotional impact on rape, on a victim, doesn't really, like it doesn't sort of enter a man's mind. What happens to a child who's been raped? The horror for the rest of your life, where your sense of self-esteem is being taken away, where you are either going to go into a corner. Many women I know who have been raped have developed lesbian relationships only because they feel safer with a woman. Many women I know say, I prefer to die if I were raped. I couldn't live because you become a victim twice. You see, she got raped, right? It's as though she caused it upon herself. Talking about experiences and the impact. A few years ago, a young woman was robbed on North Street. She was walking around the road, and a young man walks up to her and snatches her chain. He was shot. He died. And there were many people writing about the value of human life. And nobody thought that this girl might be afraid to walk on the road for the rest of her life. Emotional trauma doesn't go away. You're in your house and you're robbed. Do you ever in the night sleep well after that? You hear a sound when you jump up. Is it fear? Many women have been robbed in their homes, and they like sleep deprivation becomes a normal thing after that. They just feel, if I go to sleep, I will get robbed again. Look at the men, so mentally you're uncomfortable, or have physical illness. you don't sleep well, your stomach hurts, you get high blood pressure, all because a man decided to violate you in your own home. One person had gone into a home where an elderly woman, she was 78 years old, was there. They beat her with a rolling pin and killed her because she said to him, and he said that in a statement, "Boy, how you could do this thing to me? I used to help 9 years." Did she deserve their blessedness? It's just not their blessedness. It's the feeling you get that because women are supposed to be the weaker sex, men violate them because of a power issue. Women, I think, unless single women especially who live alone, need to have some sort of networking where people check on them regularly. In Guyana today, it is not safe to be alone and to be a woman in a house, especially if you are elderly. So we have a history in this country of where aggression is performed against women by men who appear to think that because you are a woman, they can violate you with impunity. We go back to the family. Women who have children when they're very young, early pregnancy, they themselves lack the early training to look after children. How then do these children respond to them as parents? Do they respect them? There was one boy who was 15 years old, told me his mother was a whore. He had no respect for her. So I said, why? The mother had him when she was 15 years old. At 30, she was a young woman. She was dressing in mini clothes. His friends were calling her off. And that, I think, generated so much anger in him. One has to be very careful, I think, when right now in schools they're doing family education. And that is a very important topic. What happens to you when you have children when you're very young? We look at education. Sometimes your education has to be stopped. You have the responsibility of children, child children. And women say, I'm a single parent. But I think that that should be a choice. If you want to have a child, to understand that the father might not be there, and even within marriage, she might be there and still not be there. So having children and domestic violence, domestic abuse, all go together as one package. Children who have been abandoned. With the HIV virus, there are many orphans and semi-orphans in this country. And significantly, if a child's parents has died of AIDS, immediately the family think the child has AIDS. This stigma is something is inexplicable and is not easy to accept, but it happens. So I have had children at the drop-in center, which is children program I ran, who were semi-orphans, the extended family system refused to keep them. Those children grow up basically without any boundaries as far as parental skills were concerned. They looked after themselves. The family that should have supported them and given them self-esteem, their sense of value, their self-confidence, became their friends. Because with the friends, who were just like them, they had no one to please, all of them were the same thing. So they went around quite happily. But what kind of adults did they produce? Children need to have parameters for guidance. They need to know, I can't do this, there are consequences. How do you teach them that there are always alternatives to behavior? A boy said to me once that his mother didn't like him. So I said, why did your mother like you? He said, because the other brothers and sisters had different fathers. And when the milk came home, she would only give it to the men. He didn't get any. So he started off by hating his own family. When you have so much anger in you as a child, what do you do with it later on? Yes, it is sad. But that is the way it is. the extended family support in East Indian families long ago, I think, because of the structure of the family where subsequent to when the vegetation ended, a lot of families were given land around the estates, not because they were liked, but they cheap, available labor, easy to have. The extended family was set up, and many children were taken care of by their grandparents, by their aunts, by their whoever. Unfortunately, now with your local migration, people come to town, and you have children who are left unattended for long periods. Parents come, go out from work at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, children come from school at 3 o'clock. They are left to do a multiplicity of things that might not be socially acceptable. In the end, we have a child, we have an adult who behaves according to his own beliefs. I would hope that at the end of this seminar today, that the men who are here will be a little more attentive to child rearing practices, and the women will understand the importance of very early guiding children into behavior that is acceptable, not only to themselves, but to the wider community, to look at alternatives to behavior. Especially when it comes to choosing a partner, when it comes to conflict resolution. What do you do when you become angry, boys? Do you hit out? Do you look at how your behavior impacts on other people? Do you look at the consequences? Because I think in all of this, consequences are important. When men visit anger and aggressiveness towards women, do they really look at the consequences of the action? Is imprisonment something they say that, that's okay man, I can go to jail and come out? Do they look at what happens to their families? How it impacts on their social life of their children? Finally, I would hope that somewhere after the seminar, there will be a change in behavior generally towards women. Men and women will be more careful when they raise children, especially boys. I think a mother who raises a good, caring child because of her attitude to him, raises a potentially good husband and father. Thank you.
Here you've heard the Additional Officer, Minister of Women's Services and Social Security. That thought-provoking question. Our men responded forward with aggressiveness. Please save your questions and discussions for later. We'll do that after the break. Now we have Mr. Andrew Hicks, who is the Head of the Department of Sociology at the University of Vienna. Mr. Hicks has attended several workshops and conferences, and he has presented, and you can see his passion for gender studies and issues. He has a postgraduate diploma in education with specialization in social studies, a degree in Bachelor's of Arts with specialization in gender and peace, and a professional diploma in social policy from the University of Vienna. He has written on some very interesting pieces. One of his papers is entitled Domestic Violence, the Perspective of Victims, a Call for Action. He also wrote on male attitudes towards family planning in selected communities in Vienna. And this is also a very interesting one, Men and Their Families, the dynamics of fatherhood and masculinity among inner males. So he has also done public lectures on the tools in families, reducing violence, violence and crimes in Vienna. So Mr. Hicks is no stranger to issues in gender violence. So we will, at this time, we certainly welcome to the podium Mr. Andrew Hicks, Head of the Department of Sociology, University of Vienna.
Chairperson, and good morning. First of all, to offer my apologies for my late arrival. Today I join in saluting today's observances our women on the occasion of the commemoration of the passing of the UN Convention on the Elimination of Violence against Women. Unfortunately, I did have you muzzled, pondering my rifle. That has been as a result of my gender commitment to family. This is a testing time for my family because my son has been diagnosed with an ailment that requires corrective surgery. And unfortunately, it is one of the days, perhaps because of the change of the weather, that he has come down with severe pain. And I had to be at home to give some support to him and to my wife, his mother. And I do appreciate your support. Perhaps this might have been a little bit of destiny too, because when we get into the presentation, it is a similar reflection that has framed my interaction with this group. But before I move into slide 1, I wish to make some general observations, and that is to salute, first of all, the women who are here, and to recognize the participation of the large number of men who are also celebrating today. I am strongly committed to the ideology that we do it better when we do it together. As we reflect on all societies, including Guyana, we recognize that the majority of school dropouts are males. We recognize that the larger number of inmates in the prisons are males. We recognize that the larger number of vagrants, street dwellers, are males. We recognize a growing, perhaps a new and growing phenomenon that reflects in majority that a larger number of beggars are males. Sadly, as we reflect on the contributions of women to the family, it is recognized that women use the knife most, more often compared to men. Yet, they're the victims of knife use. And that is unfortunate. This tells us that we need to seek out stronger and newer opportunities for empowering women and men. Unfortunately, the traditional perspective of gender seems to convey an impression that gender is essentially concerned about the liberation of women. I beg to disagree. Gender is a social movement that advances the liberation of the humankind, men and women. See my thought-provoking tips to encourage your continued processing of these experiences so that we can generate a common platform to move men and women towards equity in human development. Slide 1. This slide urges us to consider the likely reaction of airline passengers when the captain voice belongs to a female, or what we think of a father who announces that he will be late for work because his son has a routine medical checkup. My son had a checkup this morning with a doctor, but certainly we had to do it at home. And I pondered, I said, I wonder if this is destiny, because I placed this as slide 1, and this has been my literal experience today. We use biology to make social differentiations between the sexes. Our views are often rested upon the social roles or expectations we attribute to males and females. In so doing, while we make social differentiations surrounding biology, what we employ is a social construct that speaks to power. This is so because these expectations, when we talk about social roles and gender roles, we're talking about the social expectations that we attribute to the male and the female. And when we speak of social roles, we're talking about a set of social expectations that are attributed to a given social position reflected in the construct we call status. And so because we are attributing expectations to what we refer to as status, then in fact we are looking at the power dimension of the relationships between men and women. And I hasten to add, boys and girls. Slide. Understanding the concept gender is vital because it reveals how women's subordination is socially constructed. It is not biologically predetermined, nor is it fixed forever. This is so because in all cultures there are changes that occur in our use of the gender construct to all women and men alike. I hasten to add that gender equality is not directly correlated to economic development. Many policymakers sometimes assume that if a country is doing well economically, then it is reasonable to conclude that the population is developing equally. I disagree. I disagree because there is a fundamental difference between economic growth and development. And so while in the national income statistics, we may be able to report high levels of gross national product, the per capita income, reflecting high levels of distribution, in many societies, this is untrue, an untrue reality. Because women are not paid equally for equal work performed in many disciplines, sectors, and agencies. Gender equality is not the so-called is not a so-called women's issue. It is an issue for men and women. Society is built on partnership. It is built on a set of functional relations between people, and women should be viewed no different. Women's empowerment is necessary but not sufficient in the process towards the ultimate goal of gender equality, which I believe is yet to be achieved in any country around the world. Now, you may question why I'm saying that women's empowerment is necessary but not sufficient. I say this because to provide women with more opportunities for development is critical. But as I observed earlier, we have to liberate many men from the social shackles of dominance, of patriarchy. And so, it is of necessity for us to work with a will. It is important for us to understand that there are some things we have to give up. Because I'm a constructionist, I will share with you, continue to share with you some of my experiences. In 2005, I was awarded an international scholarship to read for my master's degree. Being a husband and father, I then contacted my attorney to get a power of attorney in the name of my wife to allow her to transact our business in my absence. And I emphasize our business.
Amen, brother.
Whereas approach counsel, counsel then defined the degrees of power I may assign to my wife. And so I said, give her all the power. He said, you crazy. You fight this woman still again. And I said, there is no reason for that. And he said to me, why do you feel so? You can't trust women. And I said, once there is love, there is trust. I am happy to report to you that my wife did an excellent job. In fact, she managed our finances better than me. Better than I did. And to date, it is much that I have returned to Guyana. I have not withdrawn the power of attorney. I'll tell you another experience. Earlier than 2005, I believe this was in 1997. Sorry, 1999. I was selected by CAFRA, the Caribbean Feminist Association, to participate in a special workshop on domestic violence. And this is when I got my first introduction to the platform on gender and understanding and responding to violence between men and women. And I was speaking with two professional colleagues at the club. And I shared with them that I was heading to Trinidad to participate in this one-week workshop organized by Catherine. And they said, that women's thing, what are you going here for? But I believe that it's a good opportunity for me to learn something new. And my friend, 2 days after, one of my colleagues brought to me an internet download on Catherine and said to me, you were going to legitimize women's insubordination. So I am sharing with you those because these are real practical experience, and this was a conversation or a social engagement that was occurring in the boys' club. And so, as I'm saying, if we're talking about empowering women, we have to also empower men. I also recall an earlier experience. As a recently confirmed husband and dad, I went out with friends to celebrate the birth of my son, our first child. And in a way, our marriage. I promised my wife, who was spending time with her family of origin, that I'll return by 7 so that we'll get home soon thereafter. I overstayed my time again in the boys' club. In order to attain a sense of equity, I asked my friend to accompany me to receive my wife and our child. He did so very passionately and very willing. And when I got there, I pressed the buzzer and my wife responded by answering the call to the door. And immediately conceived me because I had arrived some 3 hours after the expected time. She said to me, is this the hour you're going to come to get me so that we can take this child home? And I kept my silence in obedience and apologetically. I later on apologized. We went home and we were able to make things up. There was no quarrel that was sustained. Sometime after I was again relaxing with friends, and the friend that accompanied me that night again was present, and so we were talking about men and their families, and he then said to me, when I attempted to make an interjection, that you are in no position to speak about men and their families. I said, why? He said, man, you remember the other day I went by your family's home and you were like a baby. Simply because it turned out late, the woman was all over you. So I then said, who you want to be all over? friends, I am really sharing these experiences, and I do believe as a constructionist that it is critical to share these experiences because the empowerment of men require the transfer of others' experience into our resocialization, our rebirth, our rethinking. I say this because research tells us that inasmuch that we are concerned about the level of participation of men in their families, that there are men who are actively participating and leading responsible roles in their respective families, but they are among the lesser known. It is because of the absence of knowledge of those experiences that we are unable to socially engineer the desired change among men in their families. And so we need to feel strong and empowered to talk about the benefits of family life participation. And this is why I'm saying you cannot empower women alone. That men needs to be empowered, but they need a different kind of empowerment. They need a gender empowerment. Research shows that many men who are involved in domestic activities do not feel enhanced by those activities and therefore do not cheer or boast about it, because it takes away from them. And so we have to generate a new culture of sharing so that we can reinforce change by transfer or sharing. Next slide. Equality and women's empowerment. But I want to say that, use this opportunity in this forum, that in as much that goal number 3 speaks about women's empowerment, in as much that the Millennium Development Goals are about human development, that we will not be able to attain the desired levels of development unless women are involved in all aspects of the MDGs. The MDG 3 specifically addresses what opportunities should be provided for women. It is important for us to understand that it is of necessity to mainstream the construct gender. Next slide. This is so as we reflect on what exists here. Across the globe, girls are more likely than boys to miss out on secondary education in the developing world. Emphasize on boys' education. Many adolescent girls are expected to help out at home. This is cultural. And of course, there is the phenomenon of child marriage that restricts girls' mobility and freedom. These are critical issues that require our attention. Inasmuch that this is recognized as a global challenge, it is important for us to pay attention to these challenges at home, because while they may not reflect dominantly, they exist in our respective society, in our respective cultures. The little family is faced with an economic decision because of financial hardships. The preference is to restrict the girls' access to education first. because it is believed that some male will come along to take care of her. And so there is a call for a re-examination of these cultural practices that are debilitating to human development. Poverty and gender inequality are important factors that prevent girls from going to secondary schools. At the same time, girls' education is essential to poverty eradication. And so I hasten to add that if women, or rather, when women are empowered, men are not threatened. When women are empowered, as a community, we are better able to overcome the challenges of poverty. I observe that it takes two to make one. But I want to tell you that equally important is that we undervalue the real contributions of women to family and industry. Women are involved in managing domestic economies. Unfortunately, their contributions are not recorded in the National Income Index. But when we talk about in economics, in sociology, we accept the concepts social production. And many women are involved in economic behavior through the pathway of social production, engaging in the production of subsidies which subsidize male dominance. Because in many instances, because of the contributions of women to the home, we can spend long hours in the bar. Because of the subsidies that they are producing when the mind is foul, plant the kitchen garden, or engage in tabletop gardening. Women are involved in social reproduction. Men are not dominantly involved in social reproduction. And when we speak about social reproduction, we're talking about the amount of time and resources required to produce a functional adult citizen or member of society. And so if we want to overcome the challenges of poverty, we have to recognize the contributions of women. I brought with me a documentary titled Who's Counting, performed by the New Zealand economist and sociologist Marion Warren. And I hope that we may have the time to show it sometime during the break, maybe the lunch hour, so that you can receive some further insights on these issues. Next slide. Globally, 36% of women aged 20 to 24 were married or in a union before they turned 18. And I said this is globally, and it includes the land. So as men, we have to take a stronger interest in the management of our families. The pathways that we create for our children. As the late Jamaican sociologist Barry Chavez, Professor Barry Chavez, tells us that when we speak about gender socialization in the Caribbean, there is a common theme that you tie the heifer, but you lose the bull. And because we are in the business of tying the heifer, in many ways, it was the heifer that subsidized the bull. So we have to rethink these traditional ways of socializing our boys and girls. Women and HIV, women and monogamous relationships, women, men and monogamous relationships. Women are vulnerable largely because of their limited autonomy and external factors including violence, the prevailing social and economic inequalities that exist beyond their control. There is a perception that marriage guarantees progress. Marriage may be the pathway for progress, it's no guarantee. And this is where perhaps our religious leaders need to take a more proactive role when working with those who propose to become married. Traditionally, many of our religious leaders counsel on the importance of submission. Ephesians 23. Favor, value. But we need to go beyond the traditional paradigm when we speak to those who are desirous of getting involved in a matrimonial relationship. We need to inject discussion on what kinds of values do you share on recreation. What kinds of values do you share on income? What kinds of values do you share about work? About the professional development of one another? We need to be talking about those things. It is important to speak about how God loves us, but we must talk about how we can manifest that love of God. These are critical issues because I believe anecdotal evidence will direct us to recognize that many of the incidents of violence that emerge are the result of differences surrounding these issues. Values that are not shared, quarrel over money. Too many wives and their children are left with poverty because there is a growing ideology that wealth in a family is individual and not communal. How many of us in this room can boast that our wives or husbands respectively know how much money you're working for? Knows about how much money you got stored in the bank? knows about the insurance policy that you have taken out. I recognize you, sir. Excellent. These are critical issues because if we are to move the family forward, if we are to move men, women, and our children, the boys and girls forward, we have to change our orientations, our values surrounding wealth and wealth creation. Too many. You know, we can no longer operate in a system where when you get your pay, you put what is for home in your right pocket and what is for you in the left. You know, we need to plan. Sit down and talk about sources of income and use of income. It's very critical. Marriage on its own will not reduce or remove the vulnerability of women. Because of the fact that we don't exchange much information about our financial sources, then we have opportunities or pathways to bring HIV into our families. And so we have to get involved in strict approaches to our own self-monitoring and evaluation. Have you ever wondered what fraction of the world's working hours are worked by women and girls? Thank you. It's 2/3. 66.66. And this is so because women are not only moving out into the arena of paid work, even though they're underpaid in obtaining paid work, but many of them, when they return at home, they work the second shift. And for some, there's a third. We need to address these issues. We need to engage in more productive domestic work. Find newer and more innovative recreational opportunities such as farming together, gardening together, and such like. You know, we have to find new approaches. Now, I was looking up, doing some internet research because I was particularly interested in women and national participation at the political level. I was pretty happy because we expect that at least 30% of all women globally should be participating in national decision making. The reports suggest that so far 20 countries worldwide have met the goal of having women comprise a critical mass of 30% in their national legislations, parliaments, and I'm happy to recognize that Guyana is among one of the 20 countries. Because there are only 20 countries that have achieved this goal so far. And of these 20 countries, 7 are developing countries. And so I think this is a really, really great achievement for Guyana, and I've also outlined, list the countries that are there. There is need for greater advocacy so that this trend will not only continue, but it will also increase. in my closing, because I want to develop, in addressing the issue of women's empowerment, we must also look at the need to avail greater access to women in terms of accessing financial resources so that they can involve in business, they can have access to ICT equipment, because all of this will help to bridge the gap in terms of the inequities we see in access to education and training. Women are excellent individuals when it comes to being self-learners and self-made teachers. And so we need to provide more pathways to enable women's development. And perhaps one of the valued pathways could very well be the One Laptop for Family project that is in Guyana now. And since the money is coming from the National Treasury, I want to encourage all to take opportunity of it, because it's about empowering, and let us not treat it simply as a political issue, but rather to see it as developmental. I believe it will help to reduce levels of isolation experienced by women in homes and remote places, but we must ensure that there is a complementary process that corresponds to this project that allows the family to grow rather than to become divided. Next slide. I say this because it's not just about giving the laptop, but it's also about training people to use and to manage ICTs. Because if we're talking about women's empowerment, it is critical to have our women, girls, and boys equipped with a language, not only the skill, but the language in terms of using and accessing the internet. Because if not, it will create all kinds of vulnerabilities. I know the experience of a parent inquiring what PWWOMD means, and when told that it meant parent watching over my back, the mother was extremely surprised. And so in a workshop setting, we explore what perhaps could be some of the reasons that one would have such a language construct. And clearly there was some consensus that the conversation with the internet partner may have been one that is not normative, and in the circumstances could have been creating all kinds of vulnerabilities. Let's go on. The issue of male violence has been addressed, and so violence against women is a manifestation of prevailing unequal power relations between women and men. This cannot be overemphasized. Again, if we want to reduce violence, then we have to work on reducing the divide in terms of the power relations that exist between women and men. This has been a common theme in my presentation. Violence affects all of us, but in most cases it targets women and girls and is perpetrated by men. I talk about how women use knives more, but yet they are the victims of the larger number of victims of knife use. That point is made, and therefore we need to empower men to take greater control and ensure that there is greater safety of the knives when the knife is a tool for home building and not home destruction. In 2000, the UN Security passed Resolution 1325. This is another historical resolution in addition to CEDA, the CEDA Convention. This resolution implies that women that women must be allowed to participate in peacekeeping activities. And here I want you not to think about peacekeeping simply in terms of what is going on in the South Sahara and those kinds of places, but if we want to nurture alternative methods of conflict management, then we certainly have to get more women involved as mediators and that kind of thing. And so this is the kind of empowerment that we need to produce next time. I cannot overemphasize the importance of education. I've spoken about this, so I will not continue on this slide. Gender equality supports these observations. It is essential dimension for political participation, economic empowerment, development planning, crisis prevention, conflict resolution, opening up opportunities for consuming new technologies and moving the development trust forward, and mobilization against HIV. So in concluding, I wish to give you a provocative definition of empowerment. And this, I say, empowerment for me means the enhancing the assets and capabilities of diverse individuals and groups to engage, influence, and hold accountable the institutions that affect them. And of great importance here, I want to emphasize, is the institution of family among all other institutions. In closing, I would ask you in your respective workshop groups to use this presentation to arrive at a workable definition of gender empowerment in the context of the discussion led by myself and Mrs. Conway. And I also ask you to ponder in your respective groups, what do you consider as the critical role or roles of the University of Guyana, faith-based leaders, groups, and their membership in helping to shape gender equality in Guyana? Thank you very much for your attention.
The University of Guyana. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up to the presenters. 15 minutes break now, and after that we'll resume. We'll have our group discussions, and we'll be in two groups where we will be looking at what are your views on the issues discussed and suggestions for recommendations for relevant and effective actions. Good. Thank you.
Maximize on the time because we would like to take a break at 1:30 so that we can have lunch together, and then we will resume. What we want to do is to have smaller groups of 5 because we believe that it's a more controlled environment and it allows for more interaction, more participation. So we're going to have smaller groups of 5, and then at the end of in your small group, you're expected to use the inputs that were extracted from the two presentations to respond to the questions that was based in the thematic. So, for example, I spoke on, are men threatened when women are empowered? What are some of the key issues you would like to highlight, and what recommendations you may want to make at a forum like this for future action? We want to encourage you also to, in making those recommendations, consider the specific questions that I posed, and that is defining what gender equality is and how can the diversity in this group, as whether we are religious or social leaders, how can we or what can we do in order to promote gender equality? Right.
Everybody give it the same.
what we have to
Help me with calculating.
Okay, so somebody else can say
they were not given this type of training or they were children. They just get children born and do the basic necessities of keeping them alive, and then lose them. But in that case, and I suggest, I believe strongly that's why you present her. The father takes the daughter up, who gives this woman or this girl in marriage. I do, and then he's not here, and then what the priest does, by the power of investigating the evidence, she has gone by the as to what the bride is expected to do, how she will treat her husband, what she must listen to, what she must not either, when he explained to him who, what is it, so that they can live in our community together. And it will be a lasting one, not until we got a photograph, until the day, until they do the part of the
absolutely.
What is it? What is it?
Open the mind to that for them to understand that there's no reason to be violent against the women. That's the reason.
So you're saying there's open mind?
We need to bring that the women.
Yes.
There's no reason to be aggressive. That's my point.
That's not good enough.
Well, you know, women by nature.
Why would you treat anyone disrespectfully?
Exactly.
I don't say that.
Exactly.
If you're an empowered woman, you're behavior at home.
Exactly. Exactly. Respect.
Should not be anything. You know, so it's not really switching the roles to say,
To be respect on
the boss, I somehow, have the power to behave anyhow I want. But when I go home, I'm no longer in control.
So now I have to respect.
Yeah.
It must be who you are.
Yeah, it's who you are.
Some men too. But that's a human get to the level.
Just as we're talking respect, it's about changing views through change is not a views, it's not a better than mentality, like change, and also it is let the person see or the differences of others as being assets and getting the men to understand that even though they're not that difference is something to hold on to and grow with. That's one of the recommendations for me would be in changing
That we are functioning in a Western cultural and social relations that has messed up or to constant itself because people who are from Africa and India and those kinds of societies have got a different construct with Western society. So that's where our problem is. Because of westernized concepts of human relations, we deal with cultural, social, and historical re-education. We go beyond Greece and Rome, to ancient Egypt, and beyond to the Atlantic civilization. So it's about education, re-education, because the average person doesn't know that in a time gone by, there women have a sense of society that because when it comes to the goddess, the patriarchal culture of women. So that means that kind of foundation is forward again.
I know you do.
In a more supreme position simply because she is the groomsman, the one who bears the youth.
Education has to start somewhere, and I think the home is the site where we can start initially start that process. Because when we look at what has been happening in homes, it's basically mothers who are there being solely with the children, and the father is absent, and therefore many times what is communicated by what is done in the home, the child learns and then goes out to practice what he or she has seen in the home. Therefore, yes, while we support agreement with this thing, then there has to be a starting point.
I tend to slightly disagree on the starting point.
Being the home, thank you. That's good to me.
I think the starting point is some years ought to be the church and the school.
Not even the church, any social environment where you would have come.
So you may not be able to identify specifically what you want to
Because that's a critical issue for one, because, you know, survival is also a constant.
I'm not saying it's the norm,
What can be
right? I'm not saying it's the norm. But then, some women say they start looking at you and say, why do you stand up with the guy? Women still believe that men are the sole breadwinner of the family. Women have to believe that they use some music conveniently, that the man is the head of the home, and when they come to it, they mean that drinking. And I see some places it's a belief, but they're not living it. It's keeping its right sense. I'm looking at for everything that's going well because I want to more taking care of the women of them. The final time, because it's still a person. Stick her on, keep trying your best. One more
What does it mean? Because the child is training, the child is going to go as a and the child will not get correct answer, the child will be subjected to abuse.
So that is a problem. How can we increase the comfort zone of parents to talk to their children? That's a problem, isn't it?
Teachers, some of
in terms of finance, remember this whole saying,
women as against the men. Have you ever done that workshop? The woman brain as against the man's brain. If you do that, then you have a better understanding. The woman brain, a small fat soap, mark 6. And in the men's brain, a big fat soap, mark 6. So it means that the man looks at sex, or he thinks about sex much more than the woman do. Also, so you have to deal with that brain, with that brain function. You also look at the way you understand why men do certain things differently to women, vice versa. You know?
Sometimes they may take advantage, right?
Sometimes we get talking about your power at TV.
Everybody, and the process are as strong as your weakest link.
Religion caused mistakes. This cultural concept that men make compromisation is something incorrect. It came from the countries and the societies that it came from. Doesn't this tell anybody that the man the answer is that man and woman are both equal in sight of conflict in piety. One will be more pious than the other. Piety is a personal development of itself, how we relate to the Creator. So that's the only difference that we recognize between a man and woman. When she went to marriage, comes from the religious servant, comes from the rights, an obligation and the rights and obligations. For the right is an obligation. You cannot meet a right and don't have to do that obligation. This is the problem with society. And this is what we have to do. I have a lot of
Yeah, we got that in.
The child absent or a male figure can should under. I have seen because sometimes 6 kids in your child and she came up with the I have seen a case where the
cultural practices here, they will look shady for you to be We need a more neutral group. We need everybody to be actively involved because all of us are responsible for what is taking place in our life and in society. We should take that.
I hear you and opposite that we're going to put in place the actual race alleviating causes.
Is that the role model? We don't hear men who are responsible, who are good husbands, who are great fathers. And we do have, but it's all. Exactly.
Let us run very far from this one. We should get a recommendation for this and go to the media. Media plays a very, very important role. Very, very important.
Why don't they have a program where you can interview this guy, ask him how to do it? Exactly. What was the question?
And then how to maintain that program, whether it be mentors to somebody who is
That's what
your mind would certainly still be
My marriage before it was betrothed is that my wife felt that she should be the person in the kitchen and that I should not be there. When I get there, it's because I don't feel that she is able to. So she wants to be left by herself to do whatever has to be done in the kitchen. So if I go to try and help her wash up the wares or clean up behind her, she feels really offended. And so back education, we have a lot of work to do on both sides of it, not only the male, the female. So we have to find a way to deal with that.
she's able to do things with her money. So she's got her extras. She would buy something. She bought her television. When my kids are boy, so she's happy for that. So she said, "Man, look at the picture you see." She said, "Is I buy the ticket?" You know, and I just okay. And I walk in, and he looked at me, and he looked at her. So I said to him,
that their mothers
what is wrong? Is I buy? You know, this kind of thing. So what he's saying is both women need
to meet education, exactly. And maturity, so some level
I going to ask you I was telling that boy that my brother, so why do you super deal with the girl? She did get the son. And when she came to school, she the person should be, yeah, she came to the when she did that, she when the team had to come in and some where we have a television, she knew that she went to go and she wanted but I'm saying that some era, especially women, she really want to examples again, she's like, thank you for the good counsel that you last thought very important. What to do, for instance, men both of us in masters, you went home, but for example, you went home and you but you know, nothing is something because you know, I have a man could meet in those person on the song. These are the social especially the ones that I want to we have parents and that's
what I think is coming out of this discussion is some kind of restorative justice system, or what we call community justice system. We cannot solve all of the problems by providing individuals. And we've also seen that many times when a perpetrator gets sentenced in prison, comes out effective, worse. And so perhaps one of the things that we need to look at is to what extent we can create or build community councils or restorative justice councils at the community level that can be part of what you're talking about, the advocacy, the mediation, that kind of thing. So people know, like, traditionally, I don't necessarily have to go to the police to do this. Yes, there's a role for the police, but in Rwanda, when they had the genocide, in Rwanda, one of the piece message that is helping with healing is the community justice system. Rather than putting people in violations or people are able to go before the community elders and their parents and so on. They were then required to actually provide community services which supported the common needs of the community. So one, if you were ashamed, but you were also reintegrated.
I want to clarify one point on the question of the role of who is saying that a woman will get as many men as she wants if she's not
submit yourself to your own husband as to the Lord. As to the Lord, the scripture says, submit yourself to your own husband. I'm making a point. One example of righteousness. I'm making a point. When we get convicted, he's not the street I used to laugh at this. Can you let me know what the recommendation I want you to see a people read the Bible, they read take out from the scriptures what I ain't going to cherry pick. Who wrote the scriptures? Who wrote the scriptures? I ain't going to use one piece of scriptures. Let's look at scriptures. Let's look at our hearts. Let's look at our hearts now.
Let's get to consensus.
You asked the question of recommendation on the budget. In this the church is the church, the mosque last year, the other place of worship should be a greater role in calling men and naming and teaching them. And that's it. Let's just have a recommendation.
My groups, and I take it that all the groups are ready. And so perhaps we can start in the order of group 1. Following that order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Basically what we're asking you to do is to present the recommendations. Your rapporteur will present, or whoever is that designated person to present will present. But please feel free, if you need to provide any clarification or support to your presenter, feel free to do so. We want this to be participatory and all-embracing. So thanks for the time you spent with the group, and now let's invite group 1.
We're from group 1, we just like to present our recommendations based on what this section had to do with. Our men trying to prevent women are empowered. Basically, after discussing all the presentations and what we thought maybe what was not captured here, we came up with 7 recommendations. Firstly, the group felt that threatened was not the word to use, but rather challenge, that men find men are challenged when women are empowered. So that was our first thing to say, challenge instead of threaten. Just a little explanation to this quickly. Why we say challenge and not threaten is that if a man feels that because of his partner or women are empowered, then he's threatened. By being challenged might probably motivate him to want to go on to do something that would elevate his standards. Plus this would, more education probably takes away the thought of him being violent or anything like that, because he's elevated in standards. Secondly, social and cultural re-education and increasing spiritual education in organizations and institutions. Third, men and women should be given equal opportunity through the availability of basic education, and when we talk of education, we assume the universal definition of education in this term. Fourthly, governments and organizations should develop social welfare programs that will afford vulnerable groups to access basic education, social and economic opportunities. Fifthly, elimination of discriminatory practices for jobs designed for men and women in the job market and the labor force. Job specifications should be designed to allow for equal participation of men and women in all jobs in the labor market. Example, greater participation in jobs for women that are customary probably for male, like construction, engineering, and these likes. 6, church and faith-based and community-based organizations should play a greater role in teaching of equal rights and justice. This would also include establishment of community-based organization, faith-based organization in respective communities. Will probably have weekly meetings, monthly meetings with young people, elderly, maybe go around to houses and that kind of stuff. It's basically like a support group for community development. It starts at the bottom level. And the seventh recommendation says, second recommendation that we came up with is greater communication awareness through campaigns via radio, TV, and the print media on gender awareness issues, problems, and just like so the outline here are basically our 7 recommendations that we came up with to basically say whether men are threatening, whether women are empowered. We feel that once men and women are given equal opportunity, because basically the thing about gender issue, basically when people talk about gender, they just refer to us as women, that is a women issue. What we feel is that once men and women are given equal opportunities through the availability, access, affordability of these programs and everything that's happened, then it will eliminate the tension, or it will eliminate the demands or the woman or whatever to revert to violence or anything like that. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Men and women should be given equal opportunity
through the availability of basic education. And basic education is that education we are adopting the universal definition of education. Basically, what they're saying, this is in the presentation that was mentioned, it was just saying that in some instances, and then to take into consideration our cultural backgrounds and our cultural differences, women are sometimes left behind and men are put forward. Yes, if measures are put, yes, it does happen. If measures are put in place and if some practices or policies are adopted, then both men and women will be given the access to basic education. There will be the problem of, I'm poor, I cannot afford to send my child to school, my daughter will have to get married, the man will take care of her because she's not educated. Once she can garner the same education as the man can, then she herself becomes empowered through this method, and this will allow her to be.
But I'm not sure what they do, because in the legislation again, the current one and even the new one that they will promulgate at some such time, it is basic education, reading, writing, and arithmetic is compulsory up to, I don't know who's a teacher in here, I think it's up to age 12?
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
But then remember, we will be adopting this as a recommendation.
I'm assuming that they,
that they will adopt it,
Yes.
and it could become form like a part of the legislation so that it could be workable.
I'm assuming that these points or these recommendations which the various groups will be making today based on the two areas of consideration may be probably formed or may be probably used later based on a more broad consultation with wider society to inform a policy document promoting gender equality in all rights. So these are just
Suggestions.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that that is not written in stone.
Yes.
I understand the concerns that Emily is raising because that observation seemed to suggest to the contrary. The assumption implied in your presentation that we seem to be developing a culture where we're pushing women. That there's a little question mark there, and that is something. We're not throwing it out as an element of the report, but it's something for us to re-examine in the larger group. Because I myself don't feel that sufficient is done for women, that you still have a significant level of patriarchy in Guyana as is existing elsewhere. But we take the recommendations and we applaud the contribution.
This is our report from Group 2. I think the discussion, deliberation was very fruitful, and our very first recommendation, the reintroduction of moral education. I think everyone will understand quite clearly our need for parental skill training. And this is very important today. Many just married, they don't know how to handle parenting. And this is one of the areas that need strict concern. Thirdly, woman, when you get your empowered, you do not be aggressive. And you find it, you're a little bit like a joke.
No, not a joke.
But it's a fact that some of these women, when they get it, right, and they plant it so much, makes the man feel weak. That's right.
Get strong.
So, also, there is this need for the acknowledgement of men who have become role models. Men need help when they are being abused and not shunned. Many times we find it when we go to report. Sometimes the man are very badly beat when you go to the police station. We have to let these people know. We have to treat them equally. And similarly with the social service. Many are complaining. They go to the social service. I think a man is you, that a woman of fight and them kind of thing. No, we are not getting the proper treatment at these institutions. So we need systems to put in place to correct these, as I call it, deficiencies.
Thank you, brothers and sisters. This is Group 3's recommendation. We want to see parenting education for both men and women. There must be training in anger management. We feel that there should be group counseling for men so that men could share their individual experiences, and if they want to cry, they could cry. Because we got a culture in this country here that men is supposed to cry. If you cry, it's whatever they can share and learn in the whole process. And we asked the question, how can you help men to overcome the past that was difficult? For example, someone was sharing that, you know, your father probably tell you, go to school without you while your foot and go to school. And you don't want the men now to pass on that to their children. So how could we break the cycle then? we feel that there should be special attention paid to Amerindian villages and communities. They are a very vulnerable group in terms of their sexuality and that kind of thing. More male teachers in schools. And this might take back on what Group 1 had said, and that's why I asked the question, because I knew we had this as a recommendation. The view is, not the view is, the reality is, for those of you in the teaching system, that like 80 or 80-something% of the teachers are females. And the CEO, I was in another forum where the chief education officer said that research has shown that as the amount of as they had more female teachers in the school, there was a corresponding decline in the performance of
the men,
the boys. Of course.
Because the scene of the women
in the schools. So there would appear to be some kind of correlation between the two. It was felt perhaps that some of the boys perhaps come people from a home where there is no father figure, no father, single parent home. They come to school, there's only female teachers. They're saying they have very intake at the college is like 80-something% female also. Why is it that men are not going into the teaching?
The money too small. Money too small.
I was discussing it with even someone in here who said he left the tea and that both he and his wife were teachers, and he left teaching to a high paid. To a high paid job. So, and if it is, if from infancy or if since they are 3+, 3-9, you go to pre-primary as they would call it, so I have not seen any men, what will happen to our children in years to come? We also feel that there must be some value added to the work that women do at home. Some value, I mean, perhaps in the legal system, when you go for property division, doesn't mean you broke up now. When you go to court, the court will give you some kind of equity based on the fact that you'll be working and you'll pay the mortgage or whatever. You'll be planting a kitchen garden, Mr. Hicks reported. But in the general sense, women are not compensated. It's not added to the GDP and those kind of things, the work that the women do in the household. That is our contribution for Group 3. Are there any questions?
Quickly, just an observation. I noticed that you said one of your recommendations there that special attention, I'm not sure, just correct me.
Special attention
for vulnerable groups, especially Amerindian.
Yes.
I don't know what you said. But I just want to say something. I work with the Ministry of Family Affairs. I don't think there should be categories of abuse, because if you're saying especially Amerindians, then there's the inclination.
No, I said especially Amerindian. I'm saying that Amerindian people
need special attention.
I'm not categorizing Amerindians as special people. I'm saying given their socialization even.
What's happening in the communities?
They need special, it's like if you have a special needs child in terms of the teaching system, you have to put special measures in place for the special needs child.
Okay, point taken, and I know this will be for further discussion and everything, but just my point, my view, I don't think that it should be categorized as towards Amerindians. From my interpretation would be that you're saying Amerindians because they're vulnerable meaning that they might probably, because of their situation, a higher level of abuse in the community. No, I don't agree with that, because the statistics states differently, and we cannot stigmatize a particular group of people, because there's several ethnic groups that they are reporting, so it should be more widespread.
Anyhow, but that was left to
that's just my view.
Because you work in the ministry, and our group actually works with the hostel where these people come and they have been exposed to the actual
situation. I I want to thank Ms. Dawson. It's all about your schools of thought. But certainly when we come back into the plenary, we will have an opportunity to further develop these ideas. I wanted to, to make an observation. I like the recommendation that speaks to getting more teachers. The recognition that there's need for more male teachers. And I wonder if the group would be interested in modifying that recommendation to say that maybe at the national level there should be special incentives created to attract more males to the teaching profession.
Well, I don't know, would that be discriminatory?
Good afternoon, colleagues. For the sake of time, we're just going to run through this. Are men threatened when women are empowered? We did not take a stand because it's not a debate. We tried to deal with it holistically. And the reason we have a recommendation because the answer would be yes. But in some homes, like some of the men represented here, this might not be so. We are not threatened, we actually encourage our women to be recommending those that are challenged. I adopt my colleague word. We promote open communication. And the word communication is very vital here. And it's not just you speaking to the woman or the woman speaking down to you. It's that you allow for exchange of views and let God be the judge. Let good sense prevail, so to speak. So it must be a form of you listening and actively listening and actively speaking. The other one is collaboration between husband and wife. If, let's say, for example, Brother Higgs spoke this morning concerning leaving his wife in charge of the finances. Let's say in a marriage situation, the man, though, might feel, I don't want to get too philosophical or religious, might be the head of the home. But if the woman is a better money manager, allow her to manage. So we have that collaboration, and the family is viewed as a unit, as an institution, for profits, for betterment, for improvement. So that even though I might be the appointed head, the women, as in some groups might say, she's a net, the authority is the head. So we have that kind of communication, and it's not a war, so to speak, or I'm informing that I'm the man and whatever I say goes. Education, I would like to add re-education, because many of us might be educated in the role of male dominance. But as we might know from statistics, and then again you ask whose statistics, and if it's correct, you can question that. But a lot of us are cultured differently. As you know, Guyana is a multi-ethnic, multicultural society, and in most of our religious setting, it is preached and also teach that men have the ultimate role of dominance, and then as an empowered woman, that could be very threatening, and that could go to life challenging. So challenging. So we would like to re-educate, even from a cultural standpoint, the male role, because we find, which might be from peer pressure, a man helping out with the dishes, cleaning up and doing this thing, it might be termed as CC, it might be termed as, he might be emasculated, so to speak. So he just, what is natural, we will just throw back and allow the woman to work her still 9 to 5 and he look after the children, then come home, cook and do all these things, and what be prepared for the night.
The job.
Saying that I would want to, where we deal with mutual respect is that the male respect and love and is supportive of whatever his wife or special lady in his life contributes. And it has to be looked at as contribution to this unit, the family, so to speak. Sake of time, the establishment of a forum for address the concerns of men, and that is true. Many times in society you'll find a man who will be very loving, caring for his children. The wife might be an errant one. And he has no way of doing
so many.
So many.
Take your time, brother, take your time.
And he might not have a forum or a club or a place to go and say, man, this is really unfair. So he cries inside, and when you find that, he implodes. And then he might create an act of form an act of butchery, or he might go to that extreme because he just can't bear this anymore. So we need more forums, more men-oriented forums where they can go and express themselves and vent. And to add, I think the last group or the group before, need more male role models and mentors, because, and this is something that's really killing them. From work, the nurse is a female. The doctor that your mother goes sees a female. You go to kindergarten as a female, so we mother to them. Then you go to school, the teachers are females. You go all over now even in churches, the females are taking it. You have a positive role model. So we need men that are nurses. We need men that are doctors, teachers, so that guys and little boys can look up and find that it's okay for a man to wear his pants above or on his waist, so to speak, and not take these other negative role models. So we need more forums, and I guess from the establishment of these forums, we can have more male modeling, where you just adopt a young man and say, well, I'll be your brother for this week, and I show you all things, stuff like that. We can play around. Just for the sake of time, we're going to close, and it's just for discussion.
Thank you. It's in the same mold as the recommendation from group 3 in terms of the forum.
That's why I said, yeah.
Yes, it's kind of common. Yes, but rather you want to. Yes. We have.
Religion is not culture, and culture is not religion. For example, you might go to China in December, but you wouldn't see a Chinese eating pepper pot.
That's true.
So we have to differentiate between the two, because most people blame religion because of what culture has inside, but it's not so. Religion is totally different from culture.
We're not blaming, but sometimes, in some cases, it can influence. Certain cultures might influence certain religions, because as Christianity practice in Guyana might be practiced differently elsewhere. I'm not saying you're not debating that, but I understand your point. But I'm just saying in some cases and instances, it crosses over and influences the other.
Pretty interesting debate. The recommendation on forum is really critical, because we need to find common ways and explore common issues. Because speaking as a sociologist, we understand culture as everything, and therefore, from a sociological perspective, there is the acceptance that religion is culture. What we make a distinction between is between religiosity and spirituality. They're not the same. And so we need to delve deeper, because you see, this kind of forum is really allowing us really to engage and to clarify and to crystallize your observation.
That's the next point I was trying to make, because it's supposed to be the guidance on top of the culture and not the culture on top of the guidance. That's the way it's supposed to be.
That is the idea, but many times the real point.
I appreciate this. The discussion is really, really interesting.
Okay, we're group 5, and we have quite a few recommendations. We start from the back page. We want to first strengthen family as an institution. We know that's the way we socialize first within our families. And we want to do that. We want to do like parenting skills, right? And we know from the families, once we have good families in the community, we want to work with communities too to see what's happening in the community, what the community needs, and provide that kind of education for them. We want to look at our health and family life education, because this is supposed to be rolled out in school many years ago. We don't know what is happening, so we want to look at it, see what's happening, and to evaluate some of, the strengths and weaknesses, and try to fit some work program into family life and education, so that we have better boys and girls. We want mentorship programs for men. We have very good men in here, you know, who can be very good mentors for other men. You know, you see a man doing something negative or a boy doing something negative, then you suppose we have now this other way to do it. And, you know, have good programs for men. Now, there are times when a man might abuse a woman or whatever, and then you put him in prison and you come back and live with his woman after. You're going to be taking them back sometimes, take home and have children. We want to have a community justice system so that we work with those men. We want to find why they're doing this. Sometimes the man had some issues since he was a small child. And, you know, he never gets over it. And because of, you know, these things, he keep repeating the same thing all over again, and you wonder why. Going in prison every 6 months he imprisons you. Because so we want to have a system where we can work with those men to bring them back to society, because, you know, we can't have all those men locked up. Too many women will be single. Social corporate responsibility for like employees. Employees must have programs for their employees, because we're all men and women who work with all these big institutions. They make money. Pump some money to us so that we can, you know, be educated into how to deal with issues pertaining to the family. So when we go to work, we don't have to study my husband, oh, mine's alcoholic and I got to do your work. I'm going to do something wrong, you know, so do programs, put money into programs so that we can work that. Gender equity empowerment. Like we said, when a woman, you know, sometimes she gets to that level and, you know, she's very disrespectful. What we said, it embroils respect. You must know how to speak to your husband, not because you're making the money and you're the one and you're going to talk to you like a little this far by, you know? He's still your husband, and the husband is supposed to be the person who actually makes the final decision. You know, you see, that's what they say with Adam and Eve. If Eve go to Adam and said Adam must eat the fruit and he say yes, but because she takes the fruit herself, they're blaming the women now, right? So we want to kind of blame. Anything happen wrong is the man, because he's the one making the final decision.
Really? No. Continue.
Yes, I just want to argue. Next on the other side. Encourage power and
affecting our
counseling and training for persons while they're in prison, we want that. Encourage and mean, promote and highlight positive behavior in men. We have the video here. When a man is doing something positive, highlight it. Right? Not only murder. The man was supportive to his wife. He was there, and he was there this morning when his son was sick. We want to see that when men do encourage. Introduce mental health as a component for teachers and social work. Yes. And men's affairs were ruled to embrace intelligence, emotional intelligence of men. Right? Those were our recommendations. Men,
somebody
I had a question because you started off with strengthening the family as an institution. How critical do you see the operationalization of our family court, with Guyana having a family court system, as towards strengthening the family as an institution?
I don't want to work with them before they have to be supported. I don't want to have to work with the family as a unit. The man and woman come together now and they have a share. I want to educate them to let them know, you know, what is about the family coming together, different ideas and so coming together. Before I want to reach support, I want to deal with them before they reach support. I don't want to do that.
I think I heard that in the explanation that the objective is not to have all disputes settled in the court system, but rather for us to look at the establishment of some community body that can help with mediation and those kinds of things. And these are proven best practices in other countries that we may be able to adapt within our respective cultures. So,
well, we have the USA here.
Yes, yes. We have
And we have been
supporting
talking
this
with in another capacity, we have been speaking to ARD USA in terms of promoting community mediation, but we getting too far with it. But I understand the point Sister saying. We want to solve the problem before court must be the place of last resort. And trust me, when you reach to the court and the judge got to decide, they ain't got no winner.
It's true.
Everybody's a loser when the court has to decide. So if we can speak with each other, with a facilitator or somebody to help us to speak, then we can be in a win-win situation. When the court decides they not no winning, even if you might get the child and I don't get the child, we can still be unhappy.
I think we have another observation.
For the man of war program. Since Brother Frederick died, I'm not hearing about it.
You know, I don't know what is happening, but I can tell you that organization used to be housed in the Secretariat of the Guyana responsible for the association. There is a need for men to go forward and again. This child would want to lead a It is accommodated in GRPA, but certainly there may be need for us to resuscitate.
They've been trying, they've been calling, but the response has been very weak.
So actually the program, it's been on a law for now.
Oh yes.
Since Brother Frederick died, I guess.
Yes.
But the thing is that don't let us focus too much on one organization here. Is that you need to generate more for men to meet and engage. And I think in principle we can accept that recommendation. I particularly like the discussion on family health and family life. This, in my view, also helps in terms of helping people to experience a sense of empowerment. You can look at issues of nutrition, because all of these things are also related to education and educational performance. So again, we need to work on people not only in terms of saving money, but how you can use alternative dietary food to ensure that the nurturing of your body is sustained, nutrients. How many of us know that 1 pound of cassava is equivalent to the food value of 2 pints of rice? You know, these are the kinds of things that we can work with in terms of helping them to understand nutrition from the family perspective. I also want to observe to the whole a related issue in terms of health and family life and reproductive health. Very often in families, in the public domain, we speak about contraception, which is the deliberate use of a natural or a man-made method to avoid a pregnancy, which is a critical thing. But we don't speak about the other side of contraception, which is something called perception, the deliberate non-use of a contraceptive to become pregnant. So this is the kind of information and education that we also have to generate, so as to help people to make decisions in partnership. And I really want to applaud all the groups for the kind of intense and fruitful discussions that you've been having. So I want to thank you for those observations, recommendations, and we look forward to bringing the large group together. Is there
are women responsible for their aggressiveness? These are the recommendations that came from the group over on my left. Recommendation number 1. State institutions have to actively pursue programs that develop their life skills, such as decision making, conflict resolution, problem solving, will complement, that will complement your spiritual values. These recommendations will complement spiritual values. Recommendation 2, mothers need to inculcate good values in their children at an early age. This should be done also at schools. Mothers should make a conscious effort not to define roles of boys and girls. Roles should be equal and consciously train boys to become great fathers and husbands. Recommendation, Women and Gender Equality Commission should promote community sensitization, awareness to reach abusers and abused persons in their communities. A woman should not call herself a new woman, but a good woman. Through respect and communication should be in partnership, not be forced to work. Our leaders must always respect women's rights. Families should spend quality time together, socializing, etc. Families should pray together in order to stay together. Government should ban vulgar music, videos, and indecent behavior in public and put in place legislative policies that establish outreach centers in communities, and it must be multi-dimensional. More programs to develop self-esteem, and one must learn to respect oneself. Holistic life skills, education, and all levels of society from nursery to university, workplaces, and in the community. And these counselors are some of the persons that can be included in the workplaces to implement these programs. Revive community spirit. That is a traditional family relationship that we had years ago when one person looks after the other person in the community. Pre-marriage counseling courses done by religious officials or officers and NGOs. Recommendation, gender-based plays and skits, some funny for entertainment, some not. On the media, educating on role sharing. So it could be out there available to all those who. And that's it for your recommendations on are women responsible for the aggressiveness of men. Put your hands together for the group.
Good afternoon, everyone. The task is mine to give recommendations that the question, are men threatened when women are in power? Group 1 said we should replace the word threatened with challenge. So they don't see it as men being threatened, but more challenge when women are empowered. And the second recommendation is that they think that social and cultural re-education, increasing spiritual education, what they're trying to say in these organizations where you have, where they teach social and cultural values, perhaps they need to be a re-education of the process. Men and women should be given equal opportunity through
the availability of basic education. Recommendation 3. Recommendation 4 is that governments and organizations should develop social welfare programs that will afford vulnerable groups to access basic education and social and economic opportunities. Recommendation 5 from Group 1, the elimination of discrimination for jobs designed for men and women in the job market and labor force. Job specifications should be designed to allow for equal participation for men and women. Recommendation number 6, the final one, well, the second to last, sorry. Church and faith-based and community-based organizations should play a greater role in teaching human and equal rights and justice. And last but not least, greater communication awareness through campaigns via radio, TV, and the print media. That was from group number 1. Group number 2 feels that there should be, recommends that there should be a reintroduction of more education. For some reason they think that that is missing or lost in our school system, in the education system. There's need, number 2, for more parental skills training. Recommendation number 3, the man was very vocal and he said, when you are empowered, don't be aggressive. So he feels that when women are empowered, they try to emasculate them. Recommendation number 4, acknowledge men who are good role models like Mr. Andrew Hicks, who has expressed. I particularly singled him out because of why he was late this morning. Recommendation number 5, men need help when they are being abused and not shunned because it leads to aggression. The man was saying that if he is being abused and he goes to the police station, the police will laugh at him. They would smirk at him, but he said it is happening, so he said men need help when they are being abused. Recommendation number 6, social service should be more responsive to complaints from persons. And that was group 2. Group number 3 recommends parenting education for men and women, training in anger management, group counseling for men so that they can share their experience. Again, how can you help men to overcome the past that was difficult? Many felt in this group that past traumas in childhood perhaps affect the men into adulthood, and psychology will attest to that. Our Indian communities will just need special attention. More male teachers in school, and that's where we talk about affirmative action. I guess we were a little bit vocal about that, we're passionate. And work done by women at home must be valued. It means that we need to have more recognition in the GNP and the GDP. Group number 4 felt that there needs to be open communication between spouses, both male and female, as well as collaboration between husband and wife. Education is important because we have a lot of cultural backgrounds, but they also need to be mutual respect for each other. It means that if the woman is bringing home 200,000 a month and he's only bringing home 50,000, we still need to have that good camaraderie in the relationship. Establishment of a forum to address the concerns of men. Men feel as though they don't have a voice to speak about what really bothers them. And so we need to have more male role model mentors. That will come. 4. And group number 5 spoke about, first recommendation, community justice system, social corporate responsibility with the emphasis regarding the employees assistance program, gender equity empowerment, embody respect, encourage corporate Guyana to include gender equity as a core value, counseling and training persons while in prison, encourage the media to promote and highlight positive behavior by men, introduce mental health as a component of teacher social work training, and I must say mental health is a part of social work training curriculum at the University of Guyana. We have something that deals with that. And men's affairs group to embrace emotional intelligence for men. Dr. Daniel Goldman, I remember that name well. strengthen family as an institution, health and family life education in schools, evaluate and strengthen mentorship programs for men. I will have captured all that was said here verbatim. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We would for recommendations from both groups. And I appoint the chair now to give a closing remarks.
Thank you very much, participants. Firstly, for those of you who have stayed with the process, we want to thank you very much. Secondly, having had an opportunity to listen in to the dialogue and the discussions that are taking place, I think they were very hot in one particular area. And I think that they were probably a little more sedate than another, but nonetheless, the issues came to the fore, and you, the stakeholders, were able to present your views as you see it. And that is what we have wanted. As the topic suggests, and we thought that they were thought-provoking indeed, because ever so often when we talk about violence, we tend to generalize and we talk the same things, we come up with some topics that will stimulate you. Some will make you, some people were angry when they firstly heard about the topic. Why do you want to raise those issues? And we said we wanted to provoke your thoughts on it. And if we had succeeded in doing, then we're happy that we raised the topics. But from what I have observed, they were indeed thought-provoking because it gives you an opportunity to think it out. Because there are lots of cultural, traditional issues that are incorporated in the whole aspect of violence. Sometimes we gloss over them and we do not try to get to the depth. And also from the premise that ever so often we only see it as a woman issue. And I personally don't see it as a woman issue in that regard. I see it as a societal issue, and hence it is important to get all sides to perhaps give their perspective of how they see the issues. And that is why today's forum, in my mind, was so important. Where do we go from there? Now, we had asked that you must be able, at the end of the workshop, to come up with at least 10 recommendations. And of course, you've heard them. They're much more than 10. What we will seek to do, because time does not permit today, we were hoping that out of the recommendations, we would have allowed an opportunity for discourse. But since we started late and we're running ahead of time, now it's nearly 3:25, it will not be possible for us to do that. What we'll seek to do is to take all the recommendations that you have made, and we will set up a working group in our commission, and they will look at the issues. And then later on, we will ask Mr. Hicks and Ms. Conway to look at those recommendations and to see whether we actually capture the points as they have heard them. And after that, we will put it on our website so that all of you can have an opportunity to see the report, because we'll try to do a better report. Now we're only talking about the recommendations. So that will be on our website. And those of you who do not have access to email or whatever, we're prepared to provide you with the hard copy of the report, which will be available at the Women and Gender Equality Commission's office. Our email, www.wgec. That's your website. No, our website is www.wgec.gy. All lowercase, so you can get us. You go into our website and you will be able to see the report there. And perhaps you will also see pictures, because what we seek to do is all the events that we have, we put them on our webpage, so we will be able to follow what is taking place. www.wgec, that is Women and Gender Equality Commission, all lowercase, .gy. The year is coming to an end for us, and as was stated before, and as was stated in our earlier remarks in the opening session, that we have collaborated with the USAID and some of these programs. And what was very interesting today is to see some of the commissioners who benefited from the training programs. They were able to use that training to help in the way they organize the workshop. So I thought, Kevin, you would be happy to know that the training did not go to, how we say, it was beneficial in the sense that the techniques were used here. Our commission, as we stated earlier today, we have already prepared our first annual program, or we presented our annual report to the Parliament with a number of recommendations. And for those of you who have not followed what we have done, I need to remind you that we invited all the political parties, actually the presidential candidates, to our meetings, and we had discussions with them to hear what their views are on women issues and how they intend to satisfy the 1/3 requirement on the national, in presenting their slates to the Elections Commission. We are aware that they have all complied. We are waiting with a bated breath to ensure that it will not only be on paper but also in practice. So that was something that we did. Also, we had, in May of this year, we discussed the whole question of sexual harassment in the workplace, and we're hoping to do research, and hopefully out of that research to make whatever recommendations for the future. And now we're having this session because we believe that violence, as I said before, it cannot be dealt with in a piecemeal way. It is a national response, and you, the stakeholders, have been asked to give your views on it, and we're hoping that you will go back to your respective organizations, wherever you are, and be the agents of change so that we can start changing the way we view things, and those negative stereotypes that exist in society. We need to start address them and possibly debunk some of them, because they have not been helpful for women's equality. Thus, we need to do much work. I want to say that as part of what we do, we seek to reach with all our stakeholders, and this is going to be a continuous type of effort. We would be willing to listen to any ideas, any programs, any suggestions you think that we can do to make our work easy. We're open to any suggestions you have. And we are now the reservoir of all knowledge and information, and whatever help we can get from you, our stakeholders, we look forward to that. So, in closing, I want to thank all of you. I do believe it has been a fruitful discussion, and you have been extremely, I would say, disciplined stakeholders. You participated well, and I trust that we can work together in the foreseeable future. So once again, thank you very much on behalf of the Commission. All the best to all of you. Next one is going to be the holiday season. We very want to talk about the silly season, but I want to talk about the festive season ahead of us and the prospect of a good 2012, or a prosperous 2012.